Hey folks, welcome back to the Harbinger VC podcast. So we have a fun interview today with my good friend from college, Jeff Zirlin, who is one of the founding members of Axie Infinity and runs their global growth. So this is more of a spontaneous conversation, but NFTs, these non-fungible tokens, and the concept of gaming, these virtual worlds, has just been so hot. So I figured we'd bring on Jeff and hear what he has to say. So Jeff, thanks so much for joining us, mate. It's a real pleasure. If I'm recalling this correctly, in hoc signo vinces.
In hoc, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's amazing to be here, and yeah, NFTs are blowing up right now.
Yeah. So yeah, this should be a fun one, like a fairly informal conversation. We'll see what we get through. And by the way, for the audience, Jeff and I were friends from college, from Yale, and we were in the same fraternity, Sigma Chi. So I recall back in the day on Sundays we'd have these Sigma Chi candle passes and kind of share what's going on over the past week and things like that. So now that we're on a podcast together, it's pretty funny. The worlds are intersecting. So yeah, I figure we start with your story. All right. So like, how did you get into crypto and NFTs? I recall you mentioned CryptoKitties was one of the earlier things that you did. Please walk us through some of that.
Definitely. So I've always been a collector of rare and beautiful things. So I grew up collecting butterflies and fossils with my father. And I think that kind of primed me for getting interested in digital collectibles. So yeah, I basically, in college or at university, I studied military and economic history, and I was really interested in sovereign debt restructuring. So that's actually how I got into crypto, because I was looking at the sovereign debt levels across the G20 countries and realized that, yeah, there was, either, defaults or massive money printing was coming. So that's how I started, kind of getting interested in crypto, but I was only interested in it from a kind of macroeconomic standpoint and kind of, as a speculator rather than as a builder or as a founder. So it wasn't until I learned about non-fungible tokens through, as you mentioned earlier, CryptoKitties, that I was like, had this moment where I decided that I needed to start working and building in the space. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, and yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride ever since.
Yeah. I think I recall you posting about CryptoKitties a couple years back, and I also recall a picture of you on Facebook where I think you're speaking at a panel and you're wearing shorts. And then, many of the fraternity brothers like Enar, Albert, a bunch of folks, were all just kind of giggling and like, yeah, that's classic Jeff, right? So it also kind of reminds me of another Sigma Chi brother, Alan Jiang, who's currently the founder of Beam. So after college, went out to do consulting, got fairly bored, and joined Uber in the really early days and became very successful there. And recall he used to always paint us in a group like, hey guys, join Uber, really fascinating company is going to take off. And in the early days, it didn't make the most sense. Like, why would you have like a taxi dispatch type service? Didn't really make as much sense as it does today. So I just remember I have some of those memories of some of the kind of earlier stuff coming out. So back to you and CryptoKitties. Can you just tell the audience a bit more about what that is, what it was like before, and where is it today?
Yeah, I mean, sure. So, I mean, CryptoKitties was an early proof of concept, right? And, it wasn't a long-term project by any means, but the cool thing was that it showed, the potential for non-fungible tokens. There was an interesting community that developed around it. And a lot of the people within that community started to think like, what's next? What's the next natural evolution of this idea? And what does the future look like? So I think, the thing that I've been working on for the last 3 years, Axie Infinity, is really an answer to that question. And basically, the evolution of digital collectibles, and I think basically we saw that NFTs could be potentially something to get non-financial speculators interested in blockchain, because that was what many of us, right? Like many of the original CryptoKitties players, they were, a lot of them were just gamers or collectors who were using the technology for the first time. So we thought, hey, if if we got interested in blockchain and actually using it for the first time because of this very simple application, right? We must be just the first generation. And this basically has a lot of potential to be a catalyst for introducing everyday consumers to blockchain technology.
I see it. Yeah, I think that's a really good description. I mean, in fact, I think the feel I get with the latest craze around NFTs, it's not necessarily just coming from folks within crypto, but more folks who are buying their own NFTs. Like NBA Top Shot, some of the other popular marketplaces. So I think for the benefit of the audience, I mean, we're not going to go through crypto and blockchain in detail. We're not going to go into the technicals of how a blockchain protocol works or how validation works. But maybe just kind of level set on this NFT concept before we dive a little bit deeper. So I'll share my understanding of it. Please correct me where I'm wrong, and we can kind of go from there. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I became conscious of this like a month. I learned about this through you, all right, like a while back, including middle of last year, and it kind of made sense to me because a lot of stuff in the crypto space, right, like there's quite a bit of hype. There's a lot of greed. The NFTs, when it comes to digital art and collectibles, made quite a bit of sense to me. So my understanding is that if you assume that a digital asset, whether it's like an audio or like an image or video or whatever, if you assume that based on blockchain technology, this particular asset could be owned, right? Like it cannot be changed, it's immutable, the provenance, where it's coming from, where it's being transferred. Like, let's just assume that you can actually own a particular digital asset. Well, if you can do that, then there's a lot of possibilities that open up because of it. I think the human behavior or desire to own things is very natural. So basically, if you can own physical stuff, great. If you can own digital stuff now because of NFT technology, then there's a lot of stuff that could be done. So, one of the things that has been blowing up, so to speak, it's been very popular over the past couple of months, has been NBA Top Shot, which is built by Dapper Labs. And I mean, that just made so much sense to me because in the physical world, if you can have, buy like a baseball card or Pokemon cards or whatever it is, people tend to pay a lot of money for certain rare cards or for like these collectibles. And then, the price of a card is pretty cheap, right? There's a lot of people that talk about this these days, but the cost of the cardboard for a card is super low, but you're going to pay top dollar for some of these rare cards that you just really like and have this kind of emotion or feeling towards, or it's even further than that. It's got having a bit of ownership over history, so to speak. So I feel like that made a lot of sense to me for someone who's not super experienced in crypto and in most cases quite skeptical or a little bit cautious at least. But the NBA Top Shot stuff made a lot of sense. It was an NFT, basically essentially videos of NBA players doing like dunks or like dribble drive or like 3-pointers or whatever it is. It's pretty cool because if you buy the NFT of that particular moment, so to speak, you kind of capture a bit of history. And some of these are kind of more rare. Some of these are more, common moments. So there's more of them, but it just made a lot of sense. So that's kind of where we are today. And to me, it almost feels like this is one of the aha moments where, again, if you assume that something that's digital can be owned, there's plenty more that can be done with it. So I'll take a bit of a pause here, Jeff. That's my understanding. I wonder, how do you feel about that? Is this kind of the type of trend that you were describing earlier?
Yes. Yeah. I think the total addressable market for something like Bitcoin is right. It's like it's disrupting money, right? Which was cool, right? But NFTs allow basically the tokenization of everything, right? So like let's talk. It's game assets, art, and even real estate, music. So it's basically allows you to own and tokenize and have true ownership for basically the entire universe of things that aren't money. So I think I prefer just to speak in stories, right? So I think that's so for example, so with Axie, right? So Axie is basically the digital pets on the blockchain. You can battle them, you can collect them. And I grew up playing games, and I was an only child, so I was playing a lot of games, and I was always trying to monetize my time in game. But I was never able to basically trustlessly sell my in-game items or my in-game resources. I was always, if I wanted to try and sell my game assets, I had to either use some kind of third party, or we ran into the issue of, okay, like I'm going to send you the item first and then you can PayPal me or Venmo me, right? And basically you can get scammed, right? So basically, at its core level, right? That's why, we for Axie, we have a smart contract, which is basically like a digital vending machine where, one party puts in the game asset, that game asset is stored in the smart contract, and then someone else can just buy it from the smart contract. And both parties are able to basically trustlessly acquire the thing that they want. So that's I guess like one example. One of the reasons that I believe that NFTs and gaming and NFTs and collectibles make a lot of sense. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So that's kind of at its core what NFTs allow you to do. But I think like what's more interesting, and I think what's so if you want to know what you're going to be asking me about in 2 years, it's going to be the tokenization and basically allowing every application to actually be owned by its users. So that's another layer of how blockchain gets used in our project, where basically Axie Infinity itself is a unicorn because it's worth over $1 billion. But the company Sky Mavis that's building Axie Infinity, we're not actually a unicorn yet. Why? Because we only own 20% of Axie Infinity, right? So this is kind of a new paradigm. It's a new approach where basically the people who build these applications will only own around 20% of the products that they build. The other 80% or so will be owned by their communities, right? And this basically creates like a hive mind effect where the users are owners. And when users are owners, they evangelize, they do marketing, they build things on top of the project, right? And basically it decentralizes, not just, right? Like people talk about decentralization of data storage, but I think it's also like decentralization also applies to the ownership of projects. And I think that's also going to be a key narrative for why gaming makes sense with blockchain, aside from just the NFTs and collectible and tokenization of these games.
Got it. Okay. So I mean, I know a bit about Axie because we talked before, but just to kind of step through a couple of things for a broader audience. So you mentioned that that the players themselves own the majority of what is Axie Infinity, and then you're referring to what, like the Axies themselves, right? The NFT value, or like some of the other tokens involved with that broader community. Like what are the gamers owning, and why are they so incentivized to keep doing stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So within Axie, there are many different things that they own. So they can own the actual pets themselves, the Axies. There are also land plots that basically are pieces of the universe, and in the future people will be able to kind of build experiences on top of them, build cities and things like that. But there's also something called AXS or Axis, which is a governance token, which basically allows is a piece of the game, right? So all of the in the future, all of the marketplace fees, the breeding fees, right? All these basically fees that had been going to Sky Mavis, the creators of Axie, will be going into a community treasury, and that treasury will be governed and controlled by the people who actually own the token. And does that make sense? So Sky Mavis itself will only have around 20% of control over that treasury.
Yeah. So I think, the way I understand it is that there's a number of these assets in a game that are NFTs, right? So like the Axie themselves are NFTs, pieces of land are NFTs, and then the AXX you describe is not an NFT. That's kind of just like a separate token. It's a governance token that kind of distributes a lot of the fees or value that's generated in the entire ecosystem. And that is not controlled by Sky Mavis, the game producer / developer, but most of the folks that are playing. Okay, that kind of that makes sense overall. But I guess just kind of go through Axie a little bit further, because you've mentioned these characters, you mentioned some battling and things like that. Like, so in terms of the game, the Axie game itself generating fees is basically what, like here, like a user plays Axie, they should buy some Axie. So I guess that's one way to make some money, right? Like whenever you pay for an Axie Infinity, that's a revenue to you. But then if a user wants to trade his or her Axie in the marketplace, then a percentage of that goes to you as well, right? That's a marketplace fee you're referencing.
Yeah, there's a so basically, in the last month, there's been $10 million of volume of of NFTs on our marketplace. 4.25% of that, it basically gets taken as a fee. Right now, that goes to Sky Mavis, the creators of the game. But starting later this year, that will actually go into a treasury that's governed by the community.
Got it. Okay, so that's another source of fees. And then you said there's breeding. What's breed? Like, how does a breeding fee work?
Yeah, so basically, the only way right now to create more Axies is for users to breed Axies that they own. So in order to breed Axies, they require some potions, and then there's also an Ethereum, a fee based in Ethereum that they pay. And so that's also a pretty significant source of funds. And so I think one of the things about Axie is that we need the Axie population to grow fast enough to accommodate new users, but it can't be growing so out of control that the value of Axies just go to zero. So it's kind of it's a balancing game, where sometimes we basically think about, okay, like we set basically like a goal, right? So what percentage user growth do we want this year? What do we think is also achievable? And then we can basically project / target a certain level of Axie population based on that, right? So say if by the end of right now, let's say we wanted 1 million Axie players, right? Then we would, and each player needs at least 3 Axies to form a team. So we know that in order for that to happen, we need to have at least 3 million Axies, right? So then it's kind of, we become like a central bank within the system over time. And it's also, I think, like where my background in monetary theory, central banking comes in. But in the future, obviously, we want it to be more kind of, that could be one of the things potentially that's actually governed by the treasury, or
I see.
they could basically set a formula.
I see.
So yeah.
Okay. So and let me know if I'm wrong, but so like there is no set amount or volume of Axies in play. You're essentially kind of issuing or creating new Axies over time that matches the demand. And then it's kind of similar to NBA Top Shot now that I think about it, where basically every season there'll be like more games and more moments and things like that. So you will be creating new NFTs or like new moments for NBA Top Shot. For Axie, you're creating new Axies and things like that. But I guess the value of the Axie is based on supply and demand. Even though there's more Axies being created, there's also more buyers that are coming in that are kind of pushing up the price of the Axies. But I guess if that, assuming that is how things are going on, I guess it's quite important for you to like not flood the market with too many Axies, right? Because then the supply demand side mechanism kind of breaks down and there's too much volume, so it's not scarce anymore. That's the way I understand it based on how you're describing it. Is that kind of how it works, or?
Yeah. I think that's generally how it works, right? And then also one of the reasons that Axies have gone up in price a lot is that you're actually able to earn different tokens by playing the game. All right. So it's kind of like they start to get priced based on like the potential, quote unquote yield that you can generate by using them in the game. So right, like one of the difference between Axie and a traditional game is that even the markets for not just like the in-game items, but also the in-game resources are controlled by players. So if someone wants to breed Axies, if someone wants to breed a bunch of Axies, they'll need a bunch of potions, right? And if they haven't, they don't have enough time to play the game to get that amount of potions, then they're going to have to buy that amount of potions. And the only way for them to get those potions, other than playing the game, is by getting them off of an exchange like Uniswap or even Binance. Right.
I
So
see.
basically, right. So basically, this is going to be like a thing too in the future where, right, it's like by giving the players control over the entire in-game economy. It's not just with NFTs, it's also with fungible tokens. You give control to the players, then you don't need, the games won't even need a marketing budget because, right, it's like the liquidity is basically, you're paying, people are getting paid to play the game, right? By the, the whales or the collectors who are subsidizing the in-game economy by, because they want a lot of, of the in-game resource, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see. So basically, the game players themselves are incentivized to play not just for fun, but because they can make money. You're saying,
yeah, it's called play to earn, right? And one of the amazing things about Axie is that it's the first play to earn game. We're definitely a pioneer in this, and people in the Philippines are surviving during COVID. And Indonesia and Venezuela are there are villages in these places where majority of the people in these towns are playing, even grandmas, even little kids. They're playing Axie. And it's making a huge difference. So I think part of what we're trying to do is build and scale so that we can change even more lives and help even more people.
Yep, got it. Yeah, so well, I guess with like you said it's called like a love potion or AXS or whatever, like whatever, like the folks that play, they can access some of that or like generate some of that, so I suppose they can sell it. And also the value of the tokens themselves accrue. And if it's a typical person in Philippines, Indonesia, I guess the local salaries are quite low. So whatever is generating this game would be, is it higher than what they typically make? Does it like just replace it altogether?
Yeah, I mean, it's about 4x the minimum wage, and like also keep in mind that you can play Axie, right? Like most people like they play games, mobile games, even despite the fact that they already have a job, right? So I wouldn't say it's like replacing a job, or it's not needed to replace a job, but it can be a nice little extra side income, right? And in some cases, these people don't have jobs in the first place, and it gives them dignity of work. So I think this is a market-based solution to the concept of UBI, I think. I think games are really important part of the future of work, because like we're seeing physical jobs being destroyed, and within some people kind of describe Axie, right, as a kind of a blossoming nation, a blossoming digital nation that has no boundaries or global borders, right? It's just everyone is allowed, and we're seeing these people kind of immigrate into our universe.
Yeah. I mean, very happy to hear that some of these people are able to generate real livelihoods playing Axie. That's really cool concept. And maybe you kind of mentioned something that's just a very powerful megatrend, at least kind of based on what I'm seeing, which is gaming, man. These virtual worlds, so-called metaverse. Everyone's talking about it now, and the company went public recently, Roblox. Right, it kind of went up like a rocket. Was worth about 40 billion dollars USD as we speak. But it's the reason why it's so expensive is because it's such a high valuation is because there's so much usage. I mean, Roblox case, it's a lot of the younger folks. I think like the younger teenagers or like 8 to 13-year-olds, but like they're using Roblox, spending more time in Roblox than anything else, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Like when they play Roblox or enter these virtual worlds, it's not really playing a game. They're kind of going to that world. So that's definitely seemingly happening. I'm not sure how much of it is due to COVID. It's probably a bit of a driver, but that trend was happening already. So now applying it to your world, which is the kind of gaming, this metaverse, and people who are making money in these virtual worlds. But now you also throw in the NFT, right? So like I think that's very exciting. I haven't quite figured out like how things will look moving forward. That's part of why I wanted to talk to you, because you're at the intersection of not just crypto NFT, but it's NFT plus kind of this virtual world movement, gaming and everything else. Can you like help us understand a bit further in the metaverse, kind of a virtual world type concept? How is that NFT used? you gave a few examples earlier of like trading items, but like what are some other ways an NFT could be used in a so-called metaverse?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, you know, one of the popular trends or themes that we see recently is okay, you know, the land within a theoretical game or theoretical metaverse being represented as an NFT. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I think that's one. I mean, NFTs are so broad, right? It's like you could tokenize the soundtrack of a game and represent that as an NFT. So yeah, I mean, I think like yeah, what we're seeing is that okay, virtual worlds are a theme or a trend. NFTs are a trend. I think when you put them together, you know, you basically get kind of a digital nation, right? And I think one of the things that people are talking about is like, okay, like one of the things that people perceive as holding back the emergence of a metaverse is basically AR, VR technology, right? You know, people expect it to be something that's in their face and something that they can kind of move around in and perceive as the natural world, but I don't actually think that that's necessary or necessarily how it's going to come about. I think, you know, within Axie, like I think what you see is what are the core ingredients that are necessary. I think it's like property rights, right? You need to be able to transact with anyone, anywhere. I think, you know, community owned game. I think like that's also the future. I mean, even in Ready Player One, right? There's this idea of giving away the game to the users, right? It's kind of like they do a winner takes all kind of thing, right? But it's like it's not without this. It's not corporatized, right? It's very community and grassroots driven, right? That was like Ready Player One is right about it's about the conflict between right like a very corporatized future and then like a more kind of community grassroots future, and the kind of interplay between that. So I think, you know, basically yeah, like very grassroots, community owned, is going to be a characteristic of the metaverse with the property rights. And you know, NFTs are just one of the tools for, you know, basically giving full property rights to your players. Very social, right? Like right now, like people are using Discord. Like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily in-game chat like might be big, but like I don't know, Discord also, you know, could serve the purpose. So yeah, I think like those are the main things that I see as necessary for the metaverse, rather than like, oh, this immersive VR world. Some people might be like very kind of dogmatically attached to that, like based on I don't know what they've seen in movies or read about in science fiction or something. But I mean, I think you know, I think there we will see awesome stuff like that in the future, but that might not be a requisite.
I see. Yeah, I agree with that. I think I mean there's examples of games like Minecraft or Roblox and the comparable ones, and folks are spending a lot of time in there without AR VR. I mean, some of those experiences are like even fairly basic, albeit it's for kids. Okay, that I think that makes sense. Although I do have a question that you probably get a lot, which is if you have a virtual world, I mean, isn't it kind of easy to spin up limitless virtual worlds? If that is the case, why does someone want to own a piece of like land in one of these virtual worlds? Because isn't the volume or supply limitless, and as such, the value should be low? Like how do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think there will be many, and you know, I think people, just like anything, you have to pick your projects and what you know get exposure to and who you associate yourselves with. I think right, we talked about how community being grassroots and community driven is very important. So it's like, you know, if you want to be a part of the best metaverse, you want to find the best community, I think, and that's the way that I would approach it. So that's why with Axie, right, like. Yes, we build the plumbing, we build the infrastructure that makes a blockchain game or an NFT game possible. But we've also seen it as like, okay, we needed to start our community building really early. It's kind of right, like one of Bitcoin's advantages, one of Ethereum's advantages is that they started really early before it was about money, and they were able to attract a lot of people who don't care about money and were in it for the mission. Right. The problem with starting an NFT project right now is that you get a lot of people who are in it solely for the money and are basically not interested in in the long-term mission, right? So a lot of people joke about it like being in it for the technology. It's not necessarily about just being in it for the technology, but having some kind of long-term vision that people are aligned with, and basically for your user base to feel like and understand that they're part of a movement. I think that's really important for these basically community-driven protocols.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. And clearly you and team have been building this for a number of years. And if I recall back, like 2018 was not a good year for crypto. 2019, I believe, was also not particularly good. And then 2020, right, like even March, where the prices really dropped and started coming back. So you've been through the ups and downs, and the NFT bump has been ridiculous lately. But what Axie's been building has been quite valuable and sustaining value even before. So I totally get it. Okay, that's very happy for you and team. Perhaps one more quick question about NFTs in these gaming worlds. So I keep hearing from people that NFTs are useful in games because, like, if you have a game item, let's say like a weapon or armor in one game, if you have it in NFT affiliated with that, you can use it in another game. It's like supposedly interoperable between games. That's kind of cool in concept. But I was wondering, like, how do you think about that? Like, how is that done? Like, what is the mechanism for that to happen? And how does that work?
Yeah. So, like, with Axie, we have never cooperated with another gaming project and seen that actually like help us grow our user base or do anything interesting, right? It might just because it's super early. What we've seen as being more important and more interesting is, okay, because Axie is on Ethereum, we can our users from their, they have basically one wallet, right? Which allows them to also use other Ethereum smart contracts, right? Okay. It's like when we released our when we launched our alpha, right? We launched the potion and we said, okay, this potion can be ERC20. It'll allow you to trade it. But then our players, they realized kind of on their own that they could then create a liquidity pool for that token on Uniswap, which is a permissionless decentralized exchange. And then all of a sudden there was liquidity, right? And a market for this potion, and we didn't even do anything. So that's, I think, like one of the cool things that we've seen is us being able to have our users like seamlessly kind of interact with these financial protocols that basically creates this kind of hyper financialization of our in-game economy, and that being without us even having to kind of build that exchange ourselves. So that's one thing. Another thing is that, okay, like with Axie, we believe in rather than horizontal interoperability, vertical interoperability, which is basically means that for our players, we can build, and even anyone else can build other experiences on top of the Axie assets, right? So right now there's a battle card game. We're also building a land-based game, right? And then there's also potential to build other games, right? Mini games, for example, even community members to build games. So it's like, okay, if you have one Axie and you can use that Axie in 10 different games, like, does that actually add a lot of value to that Axie because you can access all these different experiences all using the same asset? Like, our hypothesis is that it does add value to that asset. Does that make sense? That was actually one of the reasons that we wanted to build Axie. So Trung is this guy, the entrepreneur from Vietnam, and his childhood friend too. They're the original founders of Axie Infinity. And basically, Trung thought originally about building on top of CryptoKitties. Right. So it was like, okay, as a community member, he could potentially build on top of it. But instead he decided to build Axie as basically the ultimate thing that he, as a developer, would want to build on top of as well. So yeah, user generated content is like a huge part of our vision long term.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of a long-winded response, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I think like I'm bearish on horizontal interop, which is like basically other games using
Mm.
Axie assets and stuff like that. Although it's
Hmm.
happened,
Mm.
it's never really had an effect. But I'm bullish on, yeah, vertical interop, which is us and our community building more and more experiences, or baking those experiences into the existing Axie assets.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I see the value of that vertical interoperability. And then horizontal wise, it seems like it is doable. And
For
see what
me,
that
yeah.
looks like.
For
Hmm.
me, that would be almost kind of like a marketing thing. If there was a game, for example, that was a lot bigger than Axie, we
Hmm.
wanted to engage their users, right? It's like we can be like, oh, you can like trade your, NFT from that game for something in our universe, something like that, right? You turn it into a crafting ingredient. All of a sudden, you can actually try and engage with their users. So it's not necessarily something that is even right. It's more, some people think of it as like a bridge, but I think of it as a weapon, potentially.
Mm. Got it. Got it. Ah, that's really fascinating. Okay. And even beyond that, it seems like when you mentioned you're kind of building on top of Axie, well, it started off in the so-called crypto world, but I mean these Axies are pretty darn cute and like pretty cool. So I suppose you're kind of building up a bit of a brand IP in general. So if you have a super strong brand IP around a game that you created and you have all the rights and value that accrues from that, and like there's plenty more you can do as well. So it sounds very exciting. There's a lot of stuff that'll come out of this. Jeff, I mean, for today, just wanted to grab you when you're available. Pretty quick conversation. So we kind of touched on many of the key points. Was there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in learning more about Axie, definitely come to the Axie Discord. So that's discord.gg/Axie.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find us on Twitter. Sky Mavis, the Axie developers, we're hiring right now. So if you're looking to hire amazing builders, communicators, that in prior experience with crypto is not really. We have a lot of that. We're looking for people who are very product and user focused, and super interested in kind of helping us build the future. So yeah, we're also hiring, and yeah, just you can check out skymavis.com and find some open positions there as well.
Yeah. Yep. And then in terms of hiring, where is this for? Is this like remote around the world? Is it in Vietnam, Korea?
Yeah, ideally. So if ideally our product and engineering hires would be able to relocate to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's possibility for flexibility there. And then our growth and business hires remote. I work remotely right now. So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely possible.
Yeah, yeah, got. I mean that's fascinating because from a VC perspective, usually right, like you look at a particular market, whether it's U.S., China, you need to know it really well, and then kind of truly kind of cross-border type opportunities. There's not like too many of them or many good ones, but it seems that for crypto, for NFT space, for gaming, and for Axie Infinity, it's so incredible to realize that this is a very valuable token market cap of a company that was created in Vietnam with Vietnamese founders, Vietnamese American founders, and then also yourself, and you've been kind of splitting time between Vietnam and Korea, and you have some other folks that
they're
were
Vietnamese. They're not Vietnamese American. Definitely not
okay.
Vietnamese American.
Oh, so, got straight
Yeah,
up Vietnamese. All right.
yeah, straight up Vietnamese. Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, what I would say is, yeah, crypto is an amazing industry because it allows anyone anywhere to deploy any product that they want and deploy it to a global user base, right? Because it's like there's no right. It's like Ethereum is a global currency, right? Or ETH is a global currency. Bitcoin is a global currency, right? These tokens, right? So yeah, I think what we're seeing, and one of the characteristics of blockchain protocols and projects will be that they're have these blends of global citizens, right? Where it's like physical, like I mean I think that's also one of the things about Axie is like there are all these people who are like physical location is such like a it's such a burden. It's for, so there's some people who just want to, meet anyone anywhere in the world that kind of share their ideals and ideas and interested in the same kind of things. And I think like that's one of the reasons that crypto, is inherently viral and has been growing and just never goes away, because it connects people. It connects global citizens together in kind of this shared movement.
I totally see that. I mean, that's super valuable and is a big enabler for a lot of people and a lot of families. So, well, hey, Jeff, thanks so much for sharing more about Axie and also your own experiences. By learning about NFTs, a lot of it stems from you. So really appreciate your constant feedback and suggestions. You got me excited about NFTs. Maybe I should create an NFT of you and maybe some other speakers on Harbinger. It's like owning a piece of history, right? With some of the really great founders and investors that came out of this region, China, Vietnam, Taiwan, etc. So actually, yeah, you know what, we'll do it. Should be pretty cool.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm super excited to check it out. And yeah, man, thanks for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'll be in touch. Take care.